Okay, so you've gone through all of these stitch tutorials and you should have received the pattern in your email inbox. So now we're ready to start the actual project. Have a look through the pattern. I'll have tips and tricks on how to read patterns and which things to take note of. And so now that we've done all of that, let's actually begin. So we've got our DK weight yarn. We're going to create a slip knot, pull the yarn through, and our 4.5mm hook to do our chain, and let's chain 42. Okay, so okay, so you should now have 42 chains on your hook, and what we're going to do now is we're going to change to a 4mm hook, which is here, and we are now going to work into the second chain from the hook, and we're going to do our single crochet. So working into that second chain from the hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through both loops, just like we did before on the sample pieces. You're just going to work into every chain. This is probably the most fiddly because you're working into this chain and you don't really have anything to hold on to. Okay, so just keep working along until you get to the end. So work through all the stitches and join me when you've finished working all the stitches in there, okay? Okay, so welcome back. We have done our 10 rows. I've just got a couple more stitches to do here. So I'm just working into these last few here. 1, 2, and into the place marked one as well. Sometimes you'll see that marked on a pattern as PM. Work stitch into where your PM is, which is place marker. So I'm going to ditch my stitch marker out. I'm not doing a turning chain this time, but what I am going to do is I'm going to chain 1 to secure my yarn, because I am actually going to change my color here. So I'm going to just grab my scissors. I'm going to cut right here. Give me some yarn to sew in, but I'm not going to sew my ends in now. I'll leave that. So I'm going to pull that secure, and then we're going to turn our work. Joining a new color of yarn is quite easy with crochet. Again, we're going to start off with our slip knot. I'm going to put it on my hook, then working into where our last stitch is. I'm going to insert my hook, pull my yarn through, and pull it right through my slip stitch and pull that tight and secure. Now I can chain 1, but in this case I'm actually going to chain 1 for a half double crochet. So if you're following along with the pattern, it's 10 rows of single crochet, then 10 rows of half double. So chain 1 for your turning chain, yarn over, and then insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. And we're just going to work our way across this whole row, doing 10 rows of half double crochet. If you are using this 100-gram ball of wool for the whole project, you don't need to cut or change yarn. You just keep working on and chain 1 and continue on doing the half double crochet on top of the single crochet from the previous row. What I forgot to do was put my place marker in. So we don't put our place marker into the chain, we put it into the top of the stitch there. Okay, so we don't lose count of our stitches. If you feel confident enough that each row that you've got it right, that's great. It's always advisable at the start of a new section just to double check, because some of the pattern repeats of the stitches that we're working on in the cowl require a certain amount of stitches to make them work. So just make sure that you have 41 stitches when you start each new section. So just coming towards the end of my first row of half double crochet, and we will work a further 9 rows so that we have a total of 10 rows of half double crochet. So it forms quite a nice contrasting stitch. It's quite a nice shape, the half double crochet. I would use it quite a lot for different projects. Coming up to the end of my row here and just working into my marked stitch to insert my hook. Oops. No, oops. Should have took my stitch marker out. There we go. Chain 1 for our turning stitch. Flip your work around, and then you're going to half double crochet into that first stitch and your second stitch, and then we can move our place marker. Okay, so you will work 10 rows of half double crochet. So if you want to go and do that now, and pause the video and rejoin whenever you've completed your 10 rows, okay? Okay, so we have worked our 10 rows of half double crochet, and I have chain 1 and pull that close to finish off that section. I'm now going to put a slip knot on this green yarn. If you're using one color, just carry on and do your turning chain. So I'm just going to insert my hook, pull the yarn through my slip knot and pull it securely. We will weave those ends in later. So chain 1 for your turning chain, and then insert your hook and start working your single crochet. We have, following along with our pattern, we have another 10 rows of single crochet to do. So again, make sure that you've got your 41 stitches before you start this section. And before I move any further on, I'm just going to move my stitch marker up so I don't lose. So we've worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to put that in my first stitch so I don't lose it. Okay, so if you want to continue working your 10 rows of single crochet, pause the video and I'll meet you back when you've completed that. Okay, so we have finished working our 10 rows of single crochet. I'm just going to secure my yarn with a chain 1, cut and pull it securely. Again, if you're just continuing the one yarn, just carry on. I'm going to change to my white, use a slip knot and attach it to my last stitch. So I'm just working right in here, pull the yarn through and right through, slip knot and pull tight. Okay, so following along with the pattern, we are working our first row of double crochet feeler. So we're going to chain 2 and work our first double crochet into the bottom of the chain space. So the double crochet is worked in there. The chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch. Okay, and then we'll chain 1. I'm going to skip this stitch and work into the next stitch. And we're going to continue, skip, double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet, the whole way across. So my white yarn is a little bit heavier, so I'm not actually going to go up a hook size. In my previous versions, I went up to a 4.5mm hook to do this filet section just because it pulled in a little bit, but I think I should be okay with the heavier yarn if I don't let my tension get too tight. So we're just going to continue to double crochet, chain one, skip a stitch, 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 double crochet, chain one, skip a stitch. And then on the second row you will see how they stack together. And then we've got 2 stitches left, so we're just working into that mark stitch there. So 1 double crochet and then chain 2 for your turning chain. And then at the bottom of your chain, just into the top of your previous double crochet, do your first double crochet there, chain 1. So this time the stitch that you're skipping is the chain 1 from the previous row, so you're actually working into the top of the post of the last row's double crochet, so you're just constantly working across it. So chain 1, working into the top of the last double crochet, and continue working like that. This creates your filet, sort of like a mesh section. There are 6 rows of the DC filet, so can pause the video and continue working your 6 rows, and I'll see you back when you've finished. Okay, so we have just finished our 6 rows of the DC filet. You can see how the posts and the spaces stack directly up on top of each other. If yours aren't stacking, just double check that you've got your count of your stitches right. So I'm going to just cut my yarn here, leave enough to weave in your ends. And I'm going to chain 1 and pull that securely so it doesn't come out, and flip our yarn. So if you're following along with the pattern, we are on the next section after the double crochet filet is another 10 rows of single crochet. So again, I'm going to change my yarn because I'm just using up lots of little oddments here. Plus I quite like all the colours, actually I'm quite enjoying this one. So I'm going to just insert my yarn into that last stitch that we marked there, pull through my slip knot and chain 1 because it's oh, that's in the wrong spot. So let's do that again. Mark into the marked stitch, pull through the stitch and pull through your slip knot, chain 1 and single crochet into the same stitch. And I'm just going to move my stitch marker and mark that first stitch. Okay, and then we're just going to work our 41 stitches across. So our first stitch is in the post, the next stitch is in the chain 1, post, and then the chain 1. You will still work 41 stitches, and if you're just unsure, just go back and look at the video on the tutorial stitches, just about where to insert your stitches. So okay, so we're just going to work our 10 rows of single crochet. So if you want to go pause the video and work your 10 rows of single crochet, and I'll meet you back when you've done. Okay, so we have finished our section here of the 10 single crochet rows. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we're just gonna, I am just changing yarn. If you're using the same ball, just continue on. Just give me a second. So I'm gonna just slip stitch this new yarn onto here, secure it tightly, and then we're going to chain 2 for this part, and the chain doesn't count as a stitch, so our first stitch is worked into the same place. Okay, so for the V-stitch, you skip a stitch and then do 2 double crochet in the next space. If you want a more detailed tutorial on the V-stitch, there is a video available on YouTube going through each of the stitches in the cowl in detail, showing you how to do exactly each stitch. So if you want to go and have a look at that before you move on to this section, if you're unsure of what you're doing. But the V-stitch, essentially for this row anyway, is 2 double crochet, skip a stitch and 2 double crochet. It becomes more of the V-stitch when you start stacking the rows on top of each other and the V's start to take their own shape. At that point, when you insert your stitches into the V as opposed to on top of the stitches. So I'm just pushing forward to the end of this row, and then I can show you how the stitches sit inside each other. We have 41 stitches. Remember, your chain 2 does not count as a stitch. And in order to keep the 41, we will finish off on a V-stitch at the end. Okay. 2 double crochet, skip a stitch, 2 double crochet, skip a stitch, and then we'll put 2 double crochet into our last space, and then chain 2 for your turning chain and turn your work. Okay, just get more yarn. So again, we've got our chain 2, which doesn't count as a stitch, and we're just going to work 1 stitch into the top of that previous V, and then we will put our V-stitch in the center of the next stitch, and just continue to work across the row, inserting in between the 2 stitches, not on top, and you'll see the V's starting to appear. So continue to work your 8 rows of your V-stitch, and I'll see you back when you finish that, and we'll work the single crochet into that. Okay, so we have worked our 8 rows of our V-stitch. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're now going to work the single crochet rows with puff stitch. So I'm just going to change my yarn. So I'm going to cut this one, and I'm going to chain 1, oops, and pull that securely and attach the white yarn. I don't have very much of this left, so it might be a good opportunity to show you how I join 2 ends of yarn from 2 balls. So I've got my slip knot on here, and I'm just going to insert my hook into the last mark stitch, pull the yarn through, and pull the yarn through the slip knot and pull it tightly. Okay, so again, it's a single crochet row, so it's just chain 1, and we're going to work single crochet into every stitch, and make sure that you have 41 stitches when you get to the end of the row. It's very important with the puff stitch row that you have the correct amount of stitches, otherwise they won't sit balanced. It's a bit of a counting exercise. There's quite a lot of counting involved in crochet, a lot of maths, working things out, especially when you're writing a pattern or sizing it up for garments and things. So we're going to work 2 rows of single crochet and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to do the puffs. So pause the video and work your 2 rows of single crochet. Okay, so we have done our 2 rows of single crochet. So then in row 57 here, we're going to do chain 1 and 5 single crochet before we do our puff. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then we're going to do our puff stitch. So it's yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop. You do it 3 times and then you will have 7 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 7. Then single crochet in the next 4 stitches. 2, 3 and 4. Then we'll do another puff, so it's yarn over 3 times, 2 and 3, 7 loops and pull through, and 4 single crochet. 2, 3, 4, and then a puff stitch, so that's 3 yarn overs, 2, 3, and then 4 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, puff stitch, 1, 2, 3. You may notice there I would use my 4th finger sometimes just to keep the yarn up on the hook. Helps keep them the same height and stop them from falling down. So that's 3, 4 and another puff stitch, 1, 2, 3, and pull through all 7, and 4 single crochet, 3 and 4, and a puff stitch, 1, 2, 3, pull through all 7, and 4 single crochet. Then our last puff stitch, yarn over 3 times, 1, 2 and 3, and when we finish with 5 single crochet, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So when you turn over your work, you will see all your glorious little puffs. So there's all the nice puffs. They're not as big as a popcorn stitch or a bobble, but they just add a nice little dimension, and you can feel it's quite a solid stitch there. So you will be working another 3 rows of single crochet, followed by a row with the single crochet and puff, and make sure that your puffs stack on top of each other. They should be in exactly the same position, followed by another 3 rows of single crochet. And I'll pause the video here and I'll see you back when you've completed that section. Okay, this is a good opportunity to show you how to do a magic knot. I have ran out of yarn, so I'm going to join the 2 balls together. So the bit that's coming from the project is lying here. I'm just going to cross this one over, and then I'm going to wrap it down in beneath and pull it through. And then I'm going to take the tail, wrap it around the top, right round, and then in through the loop. And then we have 2 knots. So if I pull the yarn from the ball and the yarn from the project together, 2 knots slide together. So if you go as tight as you can, and then what you do is cut wherever my scissors are. Cut those off as close to the knot as you possibly can, and that too. So I now have my new yarn joined in, and I don't have any ends to sew in. That should hopefully just blend in whenever we're doing the single crochet here. We just come to the knot that's coming up now. There you go, that's going to be at this side. And that's just perfect. Sometimes it's better to leave those ends and sew them in as well as having the magic knot. But on this project, it's not important whether it won't pull apart from there. There's knots on that open. There's no tension on the scarf. So we're almost finished here with the 10 single crochet rows with the puff stitch. Just turn this over when I get to the end. We'll count, see where we are. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, and that's 9. So there's just one more row. So I'm just going to finish off this row and I'll be back in a second. Right, so we have worked our 10 single crochet rows with the 2 rows of puff stitch. It's not maybe as obvious in this white yarn with the puffs there, but you can see the texture of those little stitches. And then on the reverse, it's quite smooth, but you can still see the gathered stitch there, but it's not raised. It's only raised on this side. So I'm going to cut my yarn and chain 1 to secure and turn my work. And I've been working alternate colours, working around the 3 colours, so my next colour is going to be the graphite. It's a Stylecraft charcoal. So I'm just doing a slip knot, insert my hook, and in here pull the yarn through and pull it through the slip knot, and then we are doing the treble section now. So for the treble section we need a turning chain of 3, so that's 1, 2 and 3. Yarn over twice and insert your hook into the base of the chain and work your treble. If you want to, just a refresher on the treble stitch, there is a tutorial stitch video, so if you want to go and have a look at that. So we're just going to work across this section in the trebles. So it's yarn over twice, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2 and pull through 2. Obviously I go through it slower in the tutorial video. So it's a lovely long stitch. It is gappy obviously, but that's just the nature of that stitch. There are other ways to doing it if you want a closed stitch, but I just quite like the height. So I'm going to work my row of treble, and then my return row is going to be single crochet and then treble, single crochet, treble. We'll work a couple of rows of this here and then we'll take our measurements and see how many more rows we need to do. Okay. I'll talk to you and that'll make me feel less lonely. I thought I would just jump on and show you my next version of the cowl, and it's almost finished state. I'll save this for others to look at later on, but I guess I wanted to show some kind of idiosyncrasies and what would seem like flaws to those who are just beginning. Even the fact that this bottom curl at the bottom here, I wouldn't worry about that. That's going to flatten out. I haven't sewed in any of my ends. They're all over here. Even this kind of curve in here for the V-lay section, like I have used a bigger yarn. Isn't the colours gorgeous? I've used some of the other testers that have done this section in a bigger hook, up to 4.5 if they used a 4 on this section. So I think that's something that people will have to bear in mind, that their tension's going to pull things in and out a little bit. Then we have our V section and our little puffs. I love these puffs. Can you see them, little mountains? And then I've done stripes actually on the treble and single crochet layer at the end. So what I was just going to show you is sewing in the ends very quickly. If I can find a section that's nice. We'll do this bit. I love using up oddments and little bits of yarn that are just kind of going to be used for nothing else. So I have my darning needle here, and as I think I've mentioned before, I do like this one with the curved point on it. It is specifically for amigurumi, but I do love them. They They're made by Clover. If you see them on Amazon, they're the ones in this little orange pot. But it will say a bent needle. But anyway, so you're just going to thread your needle, and when I'm sewing in my ends, I will try to sew into the back of my work. So the side with my puffs is my front. So I'm going to turn it over to sew into the back. And I'm just going to weave the yarn through the stitches. What I love about this one is it's actually quite sharp at the end, so it will sort of go through between the fibres of the yarn. So I'm just kind of going through part of the stitches there, and then I'm going back on myself so that it crosses over, and I'm going in between. Can you even see that? Lynn, tell me if you can see this. The sun has just disappeared on me there. I'm sort of going in between and through some of those stitches. And again, I'll go back. So I'm pulling that yarn up there, and I'm going to go back in sort of behind where I was again. So I'm going to go in here and go through in beneath a few more of those stitches. Great, thank you, Lynn. And that'll probably be enough actually. So I've gone right from the end to here. The yarn will no longer pull the whole project because I've doubled back over myself over some of these stitches. When you pull, it doesn't tighten it from the end. So basically at that point then, I would just snip that end off down as close as I can to the project without damaging anything. And that's just how I sew in my ends. Once I have finished this completely, I will do another little video on sewing the two ends together. So just thread my needle, and again, because I'm working with white yarn, I won't sew into the black section in this one. I will sew into the white. So I'll just insert my hook and kind of go through the middle of the stitches. Try and, if I can, go through in between the yarn. Sort of split it. It makes it more secure. Again, I'm going to go back and go in through the other side of that stitch so that when I pull on the yarn, it won't pull everything. And I'm just kind of going through. Can you see the needle going through in those stitches there? It's not on the other side much, but it won't matter because it's the same colour. And again, now when I pull on that, it's pulling from this stitch. It's not going to pull the whole section at the end. Then this feels very silly because you probably know how to do this anyway because you are a crocheter. Yay! So I've watched a few people do it, and sometimes even just to finish, they would go the different direction like that there, just to go down. And that's also quite good. So just pulling it down through that way means that the yarn has got different directions, so it's not going to unravel. If you wrap it yarn and sort of double back on yourself on some of those stitches, it makes it more difficult for the yarn to work its way out when you wash it. So going back on yourself like that is quite useful. Once I have finished, I think actually I'm going to do another row of my green stripes and charcoal, but once I've done that, it'll possibly be tomorrow morning at this time because it's getting too dark now, but I will do a quick live video and save it of how to sew the two sections together. And then after we have done that, I'm going to give it a wee steam block. Steam block because this one is part acrylic yarn and there's no point in washing and wet blocking an acrylic yarn. It's better to steam block it that way. The heat is actually what's opens up the stitches, and then I'll pin it onto some of these little foam boards like I showed you the other day with the samples on it. I'll set a few of those out and pin it onto that there and let it dry completely on the steam block. And then it should stay its nice sort of square shape, because we're not going to do a border on it. We're just going to leave it as it is. It's too complicated for a beginner to work into the end stitches. So that's how I sew in my ends. I hope that has been helpful. And Lynn, thank you so much for making me feel less of a loner sitting here talking to myself. Welcome back. I managed to not be able to save the videos that I'd done on the IGTV, so I'm just picking up where we left off there. We had joined the cowl together and steam blocked it onto this mat here, so I'm just taking off the pins so that you can see the finished cowl. Hopefully going through the complete video has been helpful. Please do get in touch if you have any questions about joining or sewing in your ends. The videos hopefully would guide you through the stitches, and you should have a finished cowl at the end of it. So we just steam blocked the cowl on and then pinned it out onto this board and allowed it to dry. So all our sections are now complete. We have our puffs, V-stitch, single crochet, double crochet, single, half double crochet and single, and the treble and single crochet together there in the stripes. So this is our finished cowl. You will be able to wear it in different ways, or be able to make it in different colours. If you do make one, please do tag me, Labours of Love Crochet, if you are on social media. Use the hashtag beginners crochet cowl, and I should hopefully be able to see it. I'd love to see how everybody has done the different colours. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll have another tutorial class soon. Thank you.